Well, hello, my loves, and happy Sunday to you. So today I am layering and layering and layering, and I'm starting the layering by creating some paper. I had a story or things that were going on in my head. Just everywhere I went over the last couple of days, I saw Molly, and so I needed to just kind of layer that out and just kind of have my conversation. And that's what I'm doing with the layers. I didn't know exactly where this was going, but I knew that I wanted some nature in there because that is just a thing that Molly was. She was just connected to nature. So I grabbed some watercolor and my large pan and created just this mixture of colors. I wanted it to feel earthy and warm, so I had some greens and some siennas and those kind of yellows mixed together. And I have some medical exam paper, and I put that down. And then I put more of that mixture over the top to just get it really saturated. And I'll spray it with some water and just get it soaking so that I can then lay that stencil on top and get a pattern for me to use as collage. So I'm just layering with my watercolors. And the reason I use watercolors is because if I used acrylic, the paper would stick directly to the acrylic. And the watercolor, it doesn't. So that's why I'm using. And I just love the look of the watercolor, the softness of it. So you can see I'm layering in some of that sienna into the green just for kind of that more earthy feel. No particular recipe or anything, just whatever. I even threw a little bit of teal in there because I love teal. And then I'm sticking my stencil down in there. This is a eucalyptus stencil. It will be on sale this week. But you can see how I'm flattening it down, and you can tell where there's bubbles and when there's not. And so I'll just continue to kind of flatten that down. And then I'm going back over it just to be sure that I make sure that I've got enough medium watercolor on there to give me an imprint. And I needed to go a little bit darker so that it would show up. And so I'm just covering it all with the extra watercolor. And then it's pretty wet. And I'm still putting in some of that sienna and some of the yellow. But once I get all this done, I'm going to just lay another piece of medical exam paper over the top of it. And my thought was maybe I'll get 2 prints from it. I didn't really. I got some really great paper. But I just got 1 print, and you'll see that in just a little bit. But I'm just making sure that all the air bubbles are out so that I get a good imprint. And just pushing it down, making sure that I have contact. And then I'll just set that aside to dry while I'm working on the rest of my journal page. Back to my wonderful little journal that I have just loved, and it's just helped me so much. I've got just a printed piece of collage paper. I cut it down, and I've got some fluid matte medium out, and I'm going to put that down. I did spray it with water because it's a large piece to kind of help with the wrinkles. And it wasn't the right size, so I had to add just a tiny little bit to the end. Well, it was a little bit larger than just a little bit, but... And really, honestly, I probably didn't need the collage paper. It's just I'm finding my way back to my style, and I usually start with collage paper in most of my projects. So that's what I did. And the thing is that whenever we need to create and we don't know what to do, we just need to do the next right thing. And the first thing that I do usually is go to collage paper. And that's all I knew to do for today. No plan for this journal page, except that I wanted to add a layer for every time I thought about Molly these last couple of days or last couple of weeks. And so I'll just grab a color. This is Payne's Gray, and I'm trying to keep highs and lows and, interesting parts. But you'll notice that I really don't use a brush. I just use my rag to smush things out. And I love the look of it. It's soft and mysterious and kind of cloudy, and I like that because that feels like my brain right now. This is Prism Violet, and these are all my matte acrylic house paints that I'm using. This is Burnt Sienna. And every time I'm putting a new layer on, it just represents part of my story. And we all have a story, and sometimes we just need to create the story in our own language. It doesn't have to make sense to everybody else. I'm using magenta now. I haven't used magenta in a long time. That's how I know that I'm finding my way back to me. A little bit of teal. This is probably the most colorful page, or the most colors of the colors that I like, that I've done in Molly's journal. And I just spritzed it with water to kind of lighten it up and give kind of a speckly feel, a little more kind of rustic feel, grungy. I've got my Artistro, I never know how to say it, white pen. It has a dot end and a fine tip pen end, and I'm really enjoying these pens. They give me a lot of variety. And making marks, doing the next right thing. And then I knew I needed a place for my eucalyptus branch. So it needed to be lighter than what was on the page because I wanted it to stand out. It was growth and nature and all the things that were important to me at this moment. And so I put a little bit, this is like a mixture of gesso and caramel. So it's a really soft cream. I ended up making it a little bit whiter because it didn't feel like it stood out that much. But and who doesn't like drips? I mean, it just felt like the right thing. And while I am explaining to you what I'm doing, as you create, you don't have to explain anything. This is your time to just be, to just do whatever. If you want to make stripes, you make stripes. If you want to make circles, you make circles. You do what you need to do to create, to make your soul happy. You just do it. So I've got a little bit of gesso on a tiny credit card that I cut a regular credit card into a smaller size. And I'm just bringing in some of that white. That it adds just a little bit more dimension over the cream color. And of course I wanted it to feel a little grungy. So now I've got some acrylic ink out and I'm bringing some of the nature colors in. I've done my story underneath with all my colors, and now I'm bringing Molly's story in, the greens and the nature and that kind of thing. And I really honestly I was going to keep layering until I'd said all the things that I needed to say that were going around in my head. And I would have come back to different colors. I would have just kept layering until I was done, until I was empty of the words. I want a little bit more pattern and contrast, so I grabbed the Stepping Stones stencil, and then I just spritzed some water on it so that it wasn't so bold, because everything felt really kind of grungy and rustic. So I just wiped it up so that it was a little bit more soft. My papers are dry for the most part. The bottom part was just a little bit wet, so I dried it, but I got a really beautiful, soft impression of the eucalyptus branch, and I love it, just love it. The other paper was wonderful too, but this is what I wanted, and so I'm going to cut it out completely around all of the edges. I don't do it perfectly because nothing about this journal is perfect, and nothing about my creative time right now is about perfection. But I cut it out, and I just love how it looks. It's soft. It has the modeling. It has the scrunchy bits of the parchment, of the paper wrinkling. It just has a lot of character. So I put that down with fluid matte medium, and now I'm going to come back in with a little bit more magenta. So I'm mingling my story and Molly's story together now. That's how I'm thinking about it as I put things together, and just kind of brightening up some of the color. And then, of course, some raw umber, because nothing really feels complete unless you have a little bit of raw umber or some charcoal or some soft pastel, which will do all of that. But it gives it that grungy feel, in my opinion. Whatever makes you happy. But I hope that you take a chance today and just layer. No matter what it looks like, just keep layering until you feel like I can't layer anymore. Just do it. Get to the page and do something. Just kind of spreading some of that raw umber around, and now I've got everything dry, and I'm coming back with my General's charcoal pencil, extra soft, and I'm going to outline my eucalyptus branch. All of the supplies are going to be listed at the link below, and the stencils that I used today will be on sale. I'm just adding a little bit more shading in some of the corners to give it a little bit of weight. And then I wanted to have just a little bit of highlight on there just to make it my eucalyptus stand out just a little bit. So I took a little bit of green gold and added a little bit of white to it just to kind of give it a little bit of light. And then I'll add just a tiny bit of that sienna because I wanted more of an kind of an earthy color in there. So with this is all acrylic ink. Just a tiny bit more highlight, and I'm keeping it really watered down and loose so it matches the watercolor. And then I felt like I needed to kind of soften some of the areas just because it felt super busy. And I wanted to have a place to write that maybe I could see a little bit better. And the white really feels like it brings it all together. It just kind of softens everything. You can still see all the layers, but it just kind of softens it. Makes it feel a little less chaotic. And I did this layer by layer because I wanted it to be soft, But the more I added the white, the more I liked it, so I added a little bit more. But the layers are, again, still there. You can still see the dots and all the different things. And if it gets too heavy, I just dip my rag in some water and kind of tap it off. And then using my same Artist Pro pen with the fine tip, I'll write tamale. And I had a lot to say, so I'll add some more to that too. A few dots on my eucalyptus branch, kind of draws the eye over there. And then I'll just continue to talk with my pen in my journal. And this pen that I'm using is a Graby marker. It's a little finer. And then who doesn't like sprinkles? I know I do. Little soft pastel around the edges, and we are going to call this one done. I hope that you are able to layer and layer and layer your story on whatever you're creating today. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to make sense. You don't have to explain it to anyone. You just do it for you. All right, my loves, I hope you enjoyed today's journal page, and I hope that you always, always know that you are loved.